Hey guys, it's YXBA here, and today I want to talk about how I became a convert into the future of gaming through the Nintendo Switch. So, those of you that used to watch my videos back in the old days, the YXBA 1.0 days, you will know that I am a gamer who grew up in the 90s and had or have notions of what a traditional console market should look like, and have expressed disappointment in the fact that Nintendo withdrew themselves from the traditional console market after the Nintendo GameCube. Up until that point, they were into, basically looking at what their competitors were going to do and, you know, try to come out with the best system, the best controller, the best, um, the most amount of power. They dabbled a little bit in it online and decided against it at that time, but they weren't really into doing something completely different than their competitors. And I've since that time, especially because of the Wii, which, don't get me wrong, I loved uh, games that came to the Wii. There was times when I really loved the Wii system. There was times also where the system kind of rubbed me the wrong way because the main user base for the system were people that were dispassionate about gaming and were jumping on board just to play uh, Wii Fit or Wii Sports, and I didn't really identify with that. And then Nintendo tried something different again, but they did increase the power with the Wii U. And I was thinking that the only way that Nintendo can possibly get third-party support back the way they had it in the Super Nintendo, the original Nintendo days, or somewhat in the N64 and GameCube days, was to compete directly, come out with a system that had a very similar architecture to their competitors in Microsoft and PlayStation, and make sure that they matched every single feature and gave third parties exactly the same thing the competitors were, but maybe a little bit more powerful, so that it'd be that much easier to port games to. And that this was basically the one and only way that Nintendo could win third parties back, because they had always promised or always been hopeful of big third party support and getting third parties to make their best titles available on Nintendo consoles, but it didn't really happen. On the Wii, we did get a lot of third party support, but a lot of it wasn't of the highest caliber. And when we did get ported games, or we did get, let's say the Electronic Arts sports titles, for example, they did all kinds of weird stuff with it. Some of it was good, but some of it was irritating to me, like trying to make a Madden game with a more Nintendo art style. That's just not what people who play Madden want, and they're simply not good at it. If Electronic Arts was good at making a cutesy art style sports title, it would have made some sense. I've always been a big fan of the Power Pros baseball franchise, but those guys actually know what they're doing in terms of making a fun, quirky, and interesting sports title with a cartoony aesthetic. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to is my main point, and my main point is that with the success of the Switch and um, what we're seeing out there is that Nintendo knew more than I did, and I think that Nintendo um, saw the potential for a new market and a potential to perhaps skate to where the puck was going to be, much like Wayne Gretzky, rather than trying to skate to where the puck currently is or was, and that would have been by doing what Sony and Microsoft are doing uh, precisely. Um, and so, what I think we're seeing now is a world where people are starting to view the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, like the Pro and the X, you name it, they're starting to view these consoles as being a little bit archaic in their design. Like these are basically 90s era um, consoles, and once people open their mind and get into the Switch, it creates a paradigm switch really in their mind, which probably had something to do with the Switch naming, in that it is a paradigm switch. Once you realize that you can have current gen titles or great games, a great lineup of games, and have the freedom to do what you want with those games. Just grab your console, grab the tablet, bring it to your computer, you know, and bring it on trips, do basically whatever you want with it. It just opens up so many possibilities where, yeah, it sucks that it doesn't have the best graphics, but I think you get over it pretty quickly when you realize how old-fashioned a traditional console starts to become in your mind. And it really makes you wonder, like when there's PC available, where you can get the most powerful, big, ugly box that you want, which I love doing personally, you can get the best graphics possible. What is the point of making a console that basically is just the same thing, just a little bit sleeker and plugs into the television? I mean, seriously, that's all that it does? I mean, I still play my PlayStation 4 because, as you guys know, I'm a big Madden fan and I'm in a online franchise, and I find it very frustrating at the lack of portability in that title. And I know people are like, like certain games, like even Doom, for example, it is a little bit challenging to get into a first-person shooter using the Joy-Cons attached. Some of the aiming and things like that doesn't work quite as well. But that's a game that maybe you would, uh, you know, play it in tabletop mode with your Pro controller, or buy like one of those snake arms that people use to kind of shift and move their monitor around, and get one that's designed for a tablet so you can kind of just prop yourself up in bed and take the screen there, play with your dual analog controller, the Pro controller. There's still things you can do portably, right? Even if you're not a big fan of the controls using the Joy-Cons for that title. And there's all kinds of other opportunities too. Like sometimes it would be just nice to be able to take your game and do something on your console without having to rush to your television, turn on the TV, flip the inputs to get to the right input and boot up your console and do something. Like in this Madden League, for example, there's all kinds of stuff. Like 80% of the time that I spend interacting with this Madden franchise, I'm not actually playing a game. Okay, a lot of the times I'm just like going there to see what my draft picks are, see what everybody else has for draft picks, maybe researching the players, trying to work out trades, preparing for the next draft, reordering my depth chart, scouting my next opponent. And it's really frustrating when you just, have 5-10 minutes, and all you want to do is one of these simple things that doesn't even involve actual gameplay, and you literally have to, go to your living room, sit on the couch, do all of these things in order to access it. It would be beautiful. I'm totally switching over to the Switch if Electronic Arts gets their crap together and brings Madden to the Switch next year, because I want to be able to just grab the tablet and do those things away from the television set. So then I think that a lot of people are are kind of, they take a very rigid approach to, is this console a good thing or a bad thing, and they try and find all these double standards in people, and well, they'll say, oh yeah, you'll admit that playing Doom on your Switch isn't that enjoyable for you using the Joy-Cons. Well, so there's 90% of the other games that are just fine. I have no problems playing Skyrim on the go, but I do find it a little bit irritating playing Doom on the go in with the Joy-Cons attached. But there's other ways that I can enjoy that game, like in tabletop mode, for example, and that's like not a big problem for me. So I just think that we got to stop. People got to stop being like fanboy haters and just looking at things so um, negatively, and trying to just find some way to catch somebody in a comment to see, aha, look, you're just trying to justify this purchase. Like, honestly, when I got my Switch, and this is what I do with all of the consoles that I buy. I mean, I played quite a bit of Breath of the Wild, and then I kind of let the system sit for a while because I wanted to wait for more games to come out, and I wanted it to just hit me naturally. Like I used to, maybe when I was younger, I could go based on the emotion alone of, I just bought this new system and I just, like, I'll play hours and hours of anything. But now, as I'm a little bit older, I like to wait for things to hit me naturally. And a couple of months ago, it just really started to hit me naturally that I wanted to get more into my Switch. And the more and more I've got into it, the more I've realized that this is actually a futuristic console. It's something that is, in my opinion, the competitors are gonna have to end up uh, copying Nintendo on this one, and because the future is going to be on conveniences like having the versatility with your system, because the graphics are just getting to that point where um, the graphics are just getting to the point where it's becoming harder and harder to tell the difference. And don't get me wrong, you can still tell the difference, like, but I'm just saying, like, right now, with the Xbox One X to the Switch, there's definitely, especially on your television set, a big difference. But you kind of get used to it after a few minutes, and the same fun level, I think, exists if you're playing Doom on your Switch as playing it on the Xbox One X. You just don't necessarily get the that nostalgic feeling of remembering when you were a kid, when and wanting, and always obsessing over better graphics just for the point of obsessing over better graphics. But in the very near term future, we're going to get to the point where it's just the differences are going to be so minuscule. I mean, people are talking about in 2020, PlayStation 5 is going to have 12 teraflops of power. That's only twice what the Xbox One X is. It's going to be frame rates and small amount of graphical improvement, but it's really coming down to the budget of the game, which is why in some cases, like, Sony really goes for graphics. And there's games on PS3 that are made by Sony's first party that look better than certain games that are on Xbox One X. But I mean, this is talking in maybe a subjective way. I know that technically there may be more polygons being pushed, but The Last of Us on PS3 was pretty remarkable, and it just, it's just getting to that point. Um, so, anyways, I like to wrap up. I'm at a point where I don't even want Nintendo to come out with a super powerful console, or at least not one that's traditional. I think I'd be fine with them coming out with a a system that uses a mobile architecture where all of the games were automatically able to run on it. I'd be totally fine with them coming out with some sort of a 4K version of the Switch. And I think they need to keep on giving people more options. Come out with a Switch with a larger screen and with a larger tablet design where it's more focusing on people that use it on the tabletop. Like the audience is going to be so large that you're going to find some people that feel like, well, I wish I could have one that fit in my pocket a little bit more. So they're going to be able to increase their market size by coming out with a pocketable version. And then there's going to be people that are more into the tabletop thing and they just wish they could get um, a larger screen for that. And so there's going to be a market for that. And there seems to be a small pocket of gamers that use it in console mode only. And for them, they should come out with maybe just like a standalone box that's either cheaper or maybe the same price but with better resolution and graphics. Um, Anyways, that's all I had to say today. I hope they enjoyed this video.